Because we've got to talk about it. We just do. We've just got to talk more about it. Arrow.net, ARROE.net. We are unplugged and totally uncut with Allison Raskin.
I'm good. How are you?
Absolutely fantastic. I almost feel like that with every turn of the page in your book, there should be a dun, 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 because you go into so many truths. It's just amazing on how you walk through this storm.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
Now, the history of podcasting says that, hey, look, it all started with bloggers and then they wanted to hear their voice. You've got a podcast. Now you've got a book. Which came first, the chicken or the egg?
Oh, YouTube came first, actually.
Really?
YouTube, started my YouTube channel back in 2014, and then since then have done actually a couple of novels before transitioning it into a podcast, and now this book is my first in the nonfiction genre.
Well, it opens up the door for a lot of reality here because we're fresh out of this lockdown where everybody got to spend some time together, or they did not get to spend time together, and we are overthinking everything about us.
Definitely. I think, I conceived of the book before the pandemic, but I think it is even more relevant now with people just also being out of practice with dating, with socializing, with maybe feeling really isolated and afraid to dive back in. And so I'm hoping this book will sort of give people the encouragement to go after the life that they want.
What made you decide to put your own personal experiences within these pages? Because you're giving us a sneak peek, behind the scenes look.
I'm someone who just thinks there's so much value in sharing your own story. The book has a lot of expert advice from mental health professionals, from dating experts, couples, but as a consumer, I love when someone, when a creator really opens up and gets into the details. And that makes me feel more seen. It makes me feel more connected. It also feels more tangible in terms of not just like these ideas of how to live, but how do you actually live, So it felt important for me to share my story along the way for those reasons.
Now, is that the podcast you're coming through as the writer? And the reason why I bring that up is because my most listened to shows are always the ones about reality. I could go in there and do a bunch of fancy stuff with the production, but no, it's conversations like this that people tap into.
Yeah, I think I have, my career has always been a big part of me being me, coming up on YouTube and just sharing myself with my online audience in all of my social media. I think that's like what's really allowed people, hopefully, to connect to my creative work. And I'm someone who is an open book, both in real life and online. And I think that the feedback I get is that it allows people to feel like they can be more open in their daily lives as well. And so that's very motivating. Well,
you actually go into both sides of the story. In other words, like with romance and mental health, I'm grateful that my wife gets my weirdness. And so even though, she would enjoy this book as well because she's going, gee, I got to get by this guy's weirdness. And she's talking about stuff like that.
Yeah, I think the book, it works well both if you're the person who, has a mental disorder or struggles with their mental health, and also the partners. I think we all know someone who has struggled with their mental health, and I think we've all probably dated someone who has or are currently in a relationship with someone who is. And so much of this stuff is just how do we explain our brains better to people, because I think that there is this expectation that if you meet the right person, they will inherently understand you and know what you need in every situation. And that's just not true. Like, you need to figure you out so that you can explain yourself to someone else so that they know how to be the best partner for you.
Now, we're both not doctors, but yet we are creative people. Do you think that a lot of the anxiety, depression, and OCD is because a lot of people do not understand their creative energy and how much of an addiction creativity really is?
I think there's a lot of reasons that people develop these disorders. There's biological, psychosocial, your environment. And so I try not to put too much emphasis on why are you struggling with this stuff, and more on, okay, how do we attack these specific symptoms? Yeah,
because now you're next to our heart. That's what I love about it. There's no judgment inside your book.
No, I think that judgment is an unnecessary burden we put on ourselves. And I really wanted the book to be filled with, self-compassion, and the fact that for me, learning how to be kind to myself is what's allowed me to, become the person I've always wanted to be.
Yeah. One of the things that you cover, which you're bravely honest about this, is that facing the side effects of medication. A lot of people, yes, doctors will prescribe it, but when it comes to a relationship, the one does not speak to the other in the relationship because the medication is messing around with their thoughts.
So there are definitely some big side effects with these antidepressants and various psychotropic medications. And, I think it is important to share with your partner what those side effects are, and also to be in dialogue with your prescribing doctor about what side effects work for you and what side effects don't. And also just a reminder that, for some people, medication is long-term, and for other people, it's not. Some people just need to go on it during a rough time, and then during that window of opportunity, they can apply, what they're learning in therapy or learning through self-help, and get themselves to a new stage, and then they don't need the medication anymore. But I think there's just a lot of mystery around meds, and I'm trying to kind of get to the bottom of it so it's more clear and people feel more comfortable talking about it, both with their partners and with their doctors.
Yeah. I'm a daily writer. I journal, and I've been doing it for 28 years. What about yourself? I mean, to be this open and honest with readers, you had to start somewhere.
I have never journaled for me, but I have, written so many things over the years that have large parts of me in it. And I have a Substack where I have a weekly blog, and I'm definitely actively processing the things in my life on that blog every week. And it, as a writer, it definitely helps me come to terms with things, realize things, make discoveries about myself. So I sort of journal for an audience, if that makes sense.
Well, you're a tool. You are putting yourself out there on the streets of the everyday world, and you're speaking a language that people are tapping into.
Yeah, a lot of times I have a bit of imposter syndrome where I'm like, oh, I'm not a licensed therapist. Who am I to speak to this? But I think one of my therapists actually said, what you're offering is peer support, peer to peer, and there is a lot of value in that too. So I try to really look at it through this lens of like, how can what I've gone through maybe help other people who are going through something similar? Listeners
need to get the book, Overthinking About You, Navigating Romantic Relationships, and then they've got to jump onto your podcast because it's a continuation. It really is you stepping onto those platforms and giving love to real people.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
You've got to come back to this show anytime in the future, Allison. The door is always going to be open for you.
Oh, thank you. I love to chat, so I'd love to be back.
You be brilliant this weekend, okay?
Oh, thank you. Have a great one.